Well, well, well. Welcome to a little, well, I guess not rant, but thought experiment about the Marine with the bolt pistol and Chainsword. This fellow. I don't think, well, at least in my eyes, there is nothing more iconic in 40k than the tactical Marine sergeant bolting his way through the battlefield, sawing orcs in half. Well, that's just it. That's 40k. Unfortunately, in this last version of Kill Team, many smart people have pointed out that such a sergeant could rightfully be considered rather useless. I'm pretty sure that you already figured this stuff out yourself. Perhaps not on the sergeant here, but one of the characters in the companion, because the same problem is all over the place. But let's just bring up the guardsman sergeant here as an example, because he happens to have the same bolt pistol, plasma pistol, chainsword and power weapon, without all the other options to obscure it. And well, the stats are, you can see, they're pretty much the same. 4-3 on attacks and weapon skill. And the bolt pistol just lags behind in damage. And of course the ever so important armor piercing one, which really makes a huge difference as to what damage actually gets through. And the same thing with the chainsword and the power weapon. Both have 4 attacks, hits on 4, but this one is 3-4 and this is 4-6. With the extra rule that you actually get more crits. My 6-year-old could pretty much tell that this one is better. It's just really obvious. And don't get me wrong, I do get it. I mean, you do want to be able to use the old models you have ready lying around. Well, actually I don't have it because I never played 40k, but if you do, they are there and you can use them. Out of pure interest, I just spent a moment doing some simplified calculations here, because I mean, obviously, as stated, anyone can tell that the one of the options is worse than the other. But let's just look at the numbers here. Looking at the veteran sergeant, I mean the guardsman sergeant, yeah, that's right. You could pretty much say that he does double the damage with the plasma gun. This is versus a 4+ save guy that I assumed was the sort of normal. And that is kind of much, actually. If we look at the Space Marine guy, the sergeant there, he does, it's pretty much the same. Yeah, it's actually pretty much exactly twice as much there as well. And if we just move on to the chainsword and the power weapon, this one is a bit harder to say, you know, a bit more circumstantial, depending on how many dice your opponent has and whatnot. But these numbers, you can't deny it, you know, it's pretty much twice anyway. This is versus a guy with 3 dice and 4+ weapon skill. And once again, we have the Space Marine Sergeant. A bit less difference there. I guess it's down to the increased weapon skill, but still, it's a huge gap. I guess that was quite a fast run through there. I will just put them up here again. This is the Guardsman Sergeant and the Space Marine Sergeant. And also the same thing here with the Guardsman and the Space Marine. With all this said, I really do want to point out that I don't find this difference in damage a problem in itself. Not all weapons are created equal. So what do I like? Well, I like these guys, the mechanical guys. I don't remember their proper names now, but because they didn't exist when I was younger. And these guys, I pretty much can't decide which is the better one. The better club here, or the taser gun, or the... I have no idea what this weapon is called, or the arc pistol here. And I think that's kind of fun, because one is, you know, less damage, but more gets the armor piercing thing, or the other one gets some sort of stun thing, and it's kind of tricky, you know, it's kind of situational, which is the better one. You can't just calculate the damage and say which is the best one, which in this case you really can. One is better than the other one, because the only thing they do is damage, and one is better. I don't believe that the plasma pistol is the problem. I think it's kind of good where it is. I think the bolt pistol and the Chainsword are the troublesome ones. You get less damage for very much nothing in return. So therefore, it should not be a real big surprise that I suggest that you get something in return. And my suggestion so far is something I would like to call standard or standardized or something like that. It's more of a working name. This would be something like, this is the vanilla option. You know, the sergeant haven't spent all his well-earned money on fancy gear, or, you know, buying power weapons. I don't know if they buy them themselves or they just get them from... I'm not good at the fluff stuff. Anyway, my suggestion is that you get something else. It does not have to be on the weapon itself. It does not have to be a special crit or something like that. I would suggest that you get something like perhaps one extra action point during the game. Because, you know, you have the standardized weapon, you don't have to practice with your big old power sword. Or perhaps if you take two of these obviously bad things, in your list you can have two standardized things and you get one more equipment point. Could be useful. I don't know the scales here, but I feel like one extra action point during the game could be more worth than, you know, one equipment point. That would be cool. So something like this, but the main thing here is the idea of getting something that is not on the weapon stats. I'm not saying that this is the optimal solution and there are no problems here, because, well, just consider the poor old guardsman sergeant there. What about this last pistol? Would it be ×2? Would you get 2 action points during the game or something? Because that one is just even crappier. If the bolt pistol does 3.7, I guess the last gun does like 1.5 or something. There's no reason to take it whatsoever. So I guess the scales here are pretty hard to determine. And also, it kind of brings you back to points. I mean, we got this no point thing, choose whatever you want, but if one thing is just plain worse, it's not gonna get chosen. And as soon as you start mumbling about with all this, you get 2 extra points or you get 4 extra points for that, it's pretty much point backwards. And I guess that's not wanted. I know that even these guys, I mean, there are probably people who already figure out which one of these will be better. Or actually, if I should have put a club on here, or the little, well, actually rather large pistol on this guy. There are probably people who already figure out which combination is better there, even though they are much more alike. And it's the much more alike in the end thing that I really want to get to here. I just want to bring the obviously worse options back into at least decent options. Well, that's pretty much it. If you have any thoughts or comments there, perhaps a much better solution to this problem, just put it down there below, and hopefully we will find a way to bring my poor little sergeant here into play. Thank you. Goodbye.